This is Franx, aka Let's Get Drunk and Eat Chicken, starting my first video for the 5-game series that we are doing for the Let's Get Gaming YouTube channel. I am playing MTGO, and I'm currently playing Esper Mill.
Let's get game.
You hooker.
So as I said, this is going to be a 5-video series. The series is going to consist of me playing Esper Mill in a modern constructed league. The league lasts for a little while, but I'm going to try to get the 5 rounds in, see how well I can do. I've been testing out this deck for a fairly long time. Many versions of the deck have been made. This seems to be the most consistent one, in my honest opinion. But we're gonna go over just very quickly a few things. I'll be honest with you, I really like Mill. I've been playing Mill since I started getting into competitive Magic around 2008, 2009. I believe that's when the Zendikar block first came around, or may have been 2010. I can't remember exactly. Either way, I've been playing since I was 8. I've been playing for a very long time. I am nowhere near a professional. I just find that over the years I've developed a certain amount of skills that can help me recognize different deck types very easily, and I'm pretty good at predicting plays. So either way, as I said, I'm nowhere near a pro Magic player. I'm here. I'm going to make a video. I'm trying out for the Let's Get YouTube channel. So, well, Let's Get Gaming YouTube channel. So, let's go with that. Let's start it off. Okay, so, first thing, it is Modern Mill. So that's why you're going to see that it's not a combo. I wouldn't play Legacy Mill in this way unless I was comboing off, such as with cards like, with combos like Helm of Obedience / Leyline of the Void combo, or vice versa with Grindstone Painter Servant. Now, so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go over a few of the cards, a few of the basic cards. We're gonna go over the core of the deck, what is generally needed, and we're gonna go over my card choices and the reasons for that. So let's just get a card view. Let's get a card view. Be a little bit easier. So one of the main reasons why I'm running Esper instead of just Dimir Mill is because of the fact that I have found that the white splash is needed in Modern. It's very needed in Modern. It's extremely hard to make a Dimir Mill deck do well. Now, that being said, there was a Dimir Mill deck a few months back that did actually place in the first day of a Modern event 8-0-1. So that's a pretty big, you know, that's a big deal, because even though it was only day 1, that's still really impressive for a Mill deck. Now let's just go over some of the card choices and the reasons why I did it. So the first one is Hedron Crab. Hedron Crab, this is the very core of the deck. For those who do not know, Hedron Crab, it reads as follows. It's 1 blue. It's a 0/2 crab creature, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, target player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Now, for those who don't really understand Mill, or are new to Mill, or just watching this video, this is the bread and butter. Without Hedron Crab, it is extremely difficult to do well with a Mill deck. The reason being is because you can run fetch lands, such as Flooded Strands, Polluted Deltas, etc., that actually help make that. Actually, what happens is, so first land comes into play. Let's say it's a Flooded Strand, for example. Mills the top 3 cards. You could then crack the fetch, search for another land, and that's another 3 cards. That's potentially 6 cards just off one land in 1 turn, or potentially over a course of 2. It's extremely powerful. So Hedron Crab, auto 4. Doesn't matter if it dies to Bald, doesn't matter if it dies to Path to Exile. It's a card that the opponent has to deal with. Otherwise, it's game over for them. Another card I'm going to go over is Path to Exile. Now, this is one of the main reasons why I'm running white. Of course, it's the best white creature kill in the format, and it works really well for Mill, and I'll explain why. So let's go over Path to Exile for those who don't know. It's 1 white, it's an instant, exile target creature. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card, put that card on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. Okay, so you might be wondering, you know, okay, great kill spell. Why for Mill? Well, because of the card Archive Trap. So when a player searches his library, Archive Trap 0 cost is triggered, and we'll go over Archive Trap real quick as to see the combo between the two. Archive Trap reads that if it's a 3 colorless, 2 blue, it's an instant. If an opponent searches her library this turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay Archive Trap's mana cost. And target opponent puts the top 13 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So right there, mill players, you automatically know this is an automatic 4-off. And paired with Path to Exile, it's the perfect creature kill that we need to help trigger off Archive Trap. So I have found that that card in particular is amazing. I love Path to Exile. I love Archive Trap. They're a great combo together. As you can tell, I got very nice, pretty Path to Exiles. So that's just online though. I actually in RL, if you will, I actually have 4 of these, and actually a few more Path to Exile. Surprisingly, I have way too many. Anyway, so let's continue on. So Ghostly Prism, this is another flex slot, I call it, because you really have the core of the deck. You really have a certain amount of core cards for mill, like Hedron Crab, Glimpse the Unthinkables, Archive Traps, etc., etc. But Ghostly Prism is really good in this format because if you can land it by turn 3, it really slows the opponent down, especially if they're running a zoo deck, a rush deck, any sort of like fast creature spells that are trying to kill you, and that is a bane of mill, is super fast aggro. So Ghostly Prism reads, it's 2 colorless and 1 white. It's an enchantment. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature he or she controls that's attacking. So amazing right there. So they have to automatically pay 2 mana in order to tap, in order to attack you per creature. So not only are they being milled consistently, their creatures are being exiled, and they have to find ways to kill your Hedron Crab, for example. Now they have to pay 2 mana in order to attack you. So as if you can't already tell, I'm playing more of a control-based mill. Hence why I'm running Esper in the first place, because white, usually is control, usually helps with control anyway. So I'm only running 2 of it. I don't really need 4 Ghostly Prisms. I think that if I get flooded with them, it's a little too much. So that's why I'm just running the 2. That's really all we need. That's really all I need. Like, that's the only really card I need. I only need 2 of those. I'm good. I don't really need a sideboard option. I don't want to see them very often. So it works out. Okay, so we're going to go again. Let's continue on. Jace's Phantasm.
Okay, so you're probably wondering why, but if you read carefully, it's 1 blue, it's an illusion, and it's flying, and it's a 1/1. However,
Jace's Phantasm gets +4/+4 as long as an opponent has 10 or more cards in his or her graveyard. Okay, so right there, we're running mill. It has to be an auto-include-up in today's aggro format. It's very difficult to deal with. Not only that, it takes actually a target away from Hedron Crab, and it makes them have to deal with a 5/5 potentially on turns 2. And you're probably wondering, wow, how can you mill 10 cards in 2 turns, even with Hedron Crab, and even you get lucky with an Archive Trap? Well, because of Glimpse the Unthinkable. This is the main core of the deck. Okay, so it's 1 blue, 1 black. It's actually one of the most expensive mill cards to date. Target player puts the top 10 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It's a sorcery. It's a turn 2. It's amazing. I love it. I remember when I was in my local LGS for the first time, and I actually found these cards. These cards at the time were only worth like $3 or $4. And I found about 4 of them, and I started talking to a friend of mine, Chris Sternad, which I'm going to recognize because he brought me into the more competitive Magic scene, and he pointed out that this is, like, if you're making a mill deck that's not combo, you need this card. You need it as an auto 4-of, best mill card next to Archive Trap that you have. So, again, amazing cards. They have a lot of synergy with each other, like these 2 in particular. So that is why I run both of them. Okay, let's continue on. So Visions Beyond is 1 blue. It's an instant, and you draw a card. However, if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you draw 3 cards instead. So right there, again, odds are, by turns 3 or 4, there should be more than 20 cards in that graveyard. And that's why Visions Beyond is so amazing, because you clear your mill status. Let's say a lot of the times you'll have like one or two archive traps in your opening hand, a Glimpse the Unthinkables. You can probably get with a head-drawn crab, you can probably get maybe like, I don't know, you could probably get maybe about 36 to 40 something cards by turns 3 and 4 if you're really lucky, and that's when Visions Beyond comes into play, and you just refill your hand with 3 cards. It's literally Ancestral Recall for a mill. So, again, great card, love it. It's situational. Not only that, even if you don't have the 10 cards in the graveyard, it's still an instant 1 blue, draw card, helps filter out your deck. It's, again, I don't run 4 of them because I found that seeing too many of the draw cards I found was a little bit much, but I think 3 is the right number because usually when people run 4 cards in their deck, they want to see that card on average in their opening hand or see it enough. I don't want to see that card in my opening hand. I want to see that card on turns like 4 to 6. So when my hand is empty, it comes into play and then I can just refill it again. But if it's in my opening hand too and I have a great hand starting, awesome as well. Okay, so let's continue on. So we're going to go to Startled Awake. Now, for those who don't know Startled Awake, this is a fairly new card. I am testing it out currently. I found that when I see this card, it's not a win more card. It's actually another archive trap that cost one less colorless. And that is why it's amazing. I think this is great because not only that, it has reoccurrence. So let's describe this card. Oh, by the way, the artwork in it is fucking phenomenal, guys. Like if you haven't seen this card before, like I'm gonna superimpose it a little bit. Like look at this artwork that they have here. This is phenomenal the way it looks. It's really well drawn. Well, enough about the artwork. I just have to say, I love this card. Anyway, so it's 2 blue, 2 colorless. Target opponent puts the top 13 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So it's a baby archive trap. Not only that, it has reoccurrence. So for 3 colorless and 2 blue, you can put Startled Awake from your graveyard onto the battlefield transformed, and you can activate this ability only time you can activate a sorcery, which kind of sucks. You can't do it at the end of their turn, but you know it's still good for what it is. And when it comes into play, Skulk, this creature can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, so it can only be blocked by 1/1s or 0 whatever. Or sorry, it can only be blocked by 1x or 0x. And when Persistent Nightmare reduces combat damage to a player, return it to its owner's hand. So it, again, deal the combat damage, goes back to your hand. You now have another archive trap in hand, especially when a case where a lot of the times people will have big creatures on the board when you see this, hence why we're only running 2. And you can actually just kind of run right over them, get the card, and potentially if you need that little extra cards gone off the top of the library, this is what helps actually quite a bit. I'm only running 2 of it because I really don't want to see 4 of it. I'd rather see 4 archive trap instead. I don't want to see it in my opening hand. If it's in my opening hand, okay, depending on my hand, I may keep it. If it's not, then again, I don't want to see it that often. I just want to see it enough that it could potentially mill the last of the cards that I need in order to make me win. Okay, so let's continue on. Crypt Incursion. Now, everybody, this is another reason why I'm running mill right now, is because it's a creature-heavy format currently, and Crypt Incursion helps in a lot of ways. So the first main reason why I run it is because let's consider a deck. Let's consider Zoo. Okay, so when I'm milling Zoo, they have a lot of creatures in the deck, so they're going to have a lot of creatures in their yard, especially if my mill goes according to plan. So you have Crypt Incursion in the yard. Okay, or sorry, you have creatures in the yard. Crypt Incursion comes, 2 colorless, 1 black. It's an instant. Exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard. You gain 3 life for each creature card exiled this way. So one of the big problems with mill is that it's not necessarily slow, but it works like a burn deck, except in a sense where burn is a little bit faster because it targets your life total. So, but with mill, you're actually trying to, their life total is actually the 60 cards in their deck. So when you're getting it, however, life total for you, of course, matters greatly. So when you're getting rushed, odds are you're going to be at like 5 to 6 life if you don't have your creatures on the board, if you don't have Ghostly Prison, stuff like that on the board. So that is where Crypt Incursion comes in and helps you stay in the game for that much longer. That is reason why I like this card, and the reason why I'm running 3 of it. I don't want to run 4 because I think 4 is just a little bit overkill, but 3 seems to be my perfect number. Again, if I see it opening hand, great. If I see it later game, even better, especially when I'm low health. It's a great card in a sense. It doesn't affect all decks, but for decks like Dredge, the new Nahiri combo with Emrakul, when Emrakul hits the graveyard, you can counter it by going Crypt Incursion, exiling that and a couple other creatures in their yard. At least at that point, you can get rid of Emrakul and continue the mill. So Crypt Incursion, again, helps me stay in the game. Great card. Let's continue on. We're going to go to Mind Funeral. Now, Mind Funeral, it is one of those cards that I've seen a guy pick up his cards and throw them in my face at the amount of anger that he had over this card. And you know who that was? It's actually our other. It's actually LaHammer, the other guy that's helping me out with the LetsGet Gaming YouTube channel, my partner in crime. He's played Magic for a while too, and it was just a long night, lots of practice before a tournament we're about to go to. And he just kept his deck, like, he was actually used to run, for those older Legacy players when Zendikar first came out, he was running Vampire Hexmage Dark Depths combo, which is pretty much remove all the counters from Dark Depths, turn it into a 20/20 and flying indestructible creature. And he was running actually a really good deck at the time, but I just found ways to get around it very quickly and stop the combo. And this card didn't necessarily stop the combo, he just really hated this card. So let's go over it. 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black. Target opponent reveals cards in the top of his or her library until 4 land cards are revealed. That player puts all cards revealed this way into his or her graveyard. Now, this card is either extremely good and worth the value of 3 mana, or it's extremely bad and not worth the 3 mana. Because you could potentially just mill 4 cards, or you can mill like up to 25. It's pretty crazy the amount of inconsistency this card has, but at the same time, it's mill. You're gonna want to run it, but you don't want to run 4 of it. 4 is a little overkill, because if you see it all the time, it's not consistent enough to keep, the mill going. That's why I chose to run 2. If I see it, depending on my hand, great. If I see it at later games and they only have a few cards left in the library, it's usually a sure way to win. Again, I love it because people just see it happening, and you just keep milling and milling and milling and milling and milling and milling the cards. And you know what? In my honest opinion, I love and hate this card so much because I've had it work for me so well when I played it in Legacy, playing against Goblin Charbelcher, which only runs I think 1 to 2 or 3 lands. They lose. They lost the game. If you can cast this early enough, it's game over. So let's continue on a little bit. So we're going to stop. We're going to not go over the lands until we finish going over the artifacts. So let's continue on going down a little bit further. Mesmeric Orb. Okay, so for those who don't know what Mesmeric Orb is, it's 2 colorless, it's an artifact. Whenever a permanent becomes untapped, I want to highlight that whenever a permanent, that means anything on the board. Land, creature, enchantment, artifact, whatever. It mills, and what it does is that permanent's controller puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Now you're thinking to yourself, well, not really that good, but it actually really is, and it's very consistent. I consider it a second Hedron crap. The reason why is because people are constantly attacking with their creatures, and when they attack, when they tap all their mana out, especially when it's paired with Ghostly Prism, because they have to tap their mana in order to attack you. Now, not only that, they have to tap their creatures as well. So if they have 4 lands on the board and 4 creatures, that's 8 mill. That's 8 cards milled next turn for 2 colorless mana, and it's not just once. It's consistent. It's consistent. It's every turn, but it does affect you as well, which is a little bit scary in honest opinion because you don't really want to tap out constantly when Mesmeric Orb's down because you do mill yourself and you do mill yourself with some key cards. Now it does filter your deck a little bit, gets out like 5 lands in a row and etc. etc. But either way, great card, love it. It was actually in the Dimir Mill deck that actually went really far in the GP. He ran 4 of it. It can be paired with a couple of other cards. I pair it with Ghostly Prism just for the reason that it's part of a control shell that I'm trying to go for. So I really like it. Mesmeric Orb all the way. I'm not running 4 of it again because I found that 4 was a little bit overkill because I was actually milling myself away from key cards, but 3 of them I find consistent enough that if you see them, you're getting milled. Especially, you can actually surprise people later in the game, especially when you only have 1 on the board, and they tap out, and they have, let's say, 60, let's say they have, I don't know, let's say they have like 2 or 3 creatures on the board and about 5 lands. So if they tap everything out in order to attack me for whatever reason, or in just playing another creature, they actually just build themselves for 8. We actually play 2 of them. It does stack, and it's actually double, so they just milled themselves for 16. Again, it's a great card. I will always support it. I'm not going to support 4 of it, but 2, perfect. And now we're going to go down to Ensnaring Bridge. Ensnaring Bridge is the bane of all creature decks. And for those who don't know what Ensnaring Bridge is, it's 3 colorless, it's an artifact, and creatures with power greater than the number of cards in your hand can attack. With Mill, you're not clearing your hand consistently enough for it to be like 100%, but you are getting a little lower. You do always have a little lower of a card count. Odds are you're going to have maybe about 1 to 2 cards in your hand at all times, and modern creatures can get fairly big fairly quickly. And unless they deal with the Ensnaring Bridge / Ghostly Prism, they pair really well together, because not only are they tapping out for Ghostly Prism in order to attack you, they have to make sure now your hand size is low enough for them to attack you. So they have to kill not only an artifact now, they have to kill an enchantment. And there's not a lot of main board artifacts / enchantment kills outside of like creature kill box and Naharia combo and maybe Tron if they can get the Oblivion Stone down fast enough. Either way, it's another part of my control shell. I don't really want to run 4 of again because I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it extremely often. I run 2 because I think it's consistent enough paired with Ghostly Prism. Makes like I actually used to run just 4 Ensnaring Bridge, but recently I switched it to try to do like a split between Ghostly Prism and Ensnaring Bridge. I find them both needed and very consistent, and especially when both of them are on the board, it's just amazing in itself. Okay, so my lands are very basic. Flooded Strands, of course, because I need to get my white, black, and blue. I need to get my white and blue mana. I can also search for stuff like, where is it? Watery Grave, for example. Godless Shrine and Hollowed Foundry. It's very consistent in that aspect. I run Ghost Quarter because Ghost Quarter paired with Archive Trap. It actually makes them search again. It's also very good against Tron to prevent their Tron lands from going off, because usually turn 3 Karn is a very scary thing. Not so much for Mel, just in general, because you don't really want to see Karn. He's just a scary card. Karn the Liberated he's just a fucking scary card. But anyway, so Ghost Quarter again, it gets rid of those pesky lands that can become fairly annoying, and it actually makes the player search his or her library or choose to search his or her library. So let's just say let's say you're on game 2, the opponent already knows you're running Archive Trap. Now, if they go a 1 or first turn like land and then a big land, they have to choose whether or not they want to search their library, because now in their mind, a good Magic player anyway, in their mind is thinking, okay, well, I have to search because I need a land, because now I'm down a land, but then I have to worry about Archive Trap. So potentially it's a strip mine, which is why I love Ghost Quarter. I think it's really needed in this deck. It's part of my only colorless source, and I only run 3 colorless sources in the deck because I do need a lot of blues, a lot of blacks, and I just find it that it just pairs well with Archive Trap. Again, it's really needed. You don't need a lot of land kill in Modern, but you do need a little bit, in my honest opinion, when you're coming to a control style deck. Godless Shrine, of course, because I need the white, I need the black. I need the white, I need the blue with Hollowed Foundry. I need to see enough white that Ghostly Prism and Path to Exile that will be coming consistently, plus I have cards in the sideboard which I need a little bit more white for. Basic blues, just in case I get Ghost Quartered myself. We're going to basic planes again in case I get Ghost Quarter myself. A lot of people will argue that running like your basics of the deck is not really needed, but I found that you need your basics for Blood Moons, because Blood Moon is a very scary thing against Mill. It could potentially shut you down completely, and you don't really have a lot of counters outside the sideboard. So 2 islands I needed because I do have double sources like Archive Trap and Startled Awake. I need the double blue. Okay, so we're gonna go Polluted Delta again. You need to run 8 fetches in Mill because paired with Hedron Crab, and plus you need to see your colored mana is very key. Watery Grave again, I need the black and the blue. So now we're going to go to 2 lands that you're probably caught off guard, which I haven't really named yet. Okay, so Orboro, Palace in the Clouds. So it's a legendary land. It comes into play, taps for 1 blue. You pay 1 colorless. You return Orboro, Palace of the Clouds to its owner's hand. Now you're probably wondering, why? Why am I running this card? What use could it have? Okay, well, Hedron Crab. So paired with Hedron Crab, you can actually tap 1 mana, return this to your hand, and play it on the same turn. If you don't have anything going in your hand, now you got a combo with Hedron Crab, constantly bringing a land back into your hand, into play again, into your hand, into play again, and now you get your mill factor going, and now it actually helps mill a little bit more. You only need a 1 of it. It's a legendary. You don't really want to see more of it. It's an extra blue source because, you know, blue is very important in the deck. Most of our cards we need 1 blue in order to cast it. And now Shell Dock Isle. So Shell Dock Isle, it's a hideaway land. For those who don't know the hideaway lands, what happens is this land enters the battlefield tapped. When it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library. Now, this makes you more susceptible to land kill. However, it does add 1 blue mana. You don't want to run really 4 of these because it is a tap. It does come into play tapped, and lands that come into play tapped, unless they're shock lands, for example, or unless they have like a check land or something like that, isn't very good, especially in the competitive modern scene or competitive Magic in general. But there's a reason why, and here's why we run this card. So later on in the game, you can pay 1 blue and tap it, and you may play that exile card without paying its mana cost if a library has 20 or fewer cards in it. Now, Mill, odds are they're gonna have 20 or fewer cards in it later on in the game. They're gonna have less than that later on in the game. If all goes to plan, especially on turns 4 or 5, you can win consistently just with Shell Dock Isle because it can exile an Archive Trap, it can exile Startle Awake, it can exile Glimpse the Unthinkable, it can exile a Mind Funeral. If they have a lot of creatures on the board, you're about to die next turn, but you need to slow them down a little bit. Ghostly Prism's really good with it. Even Visions Beyond is fairly good. Path to Exile is fairly good. Anything you exile of all your spells, Cryptic Incursion as well, it's great. And Shell Dock Isle, again, I think it works with Mill very well. I think it was made for Mill. And it's a blue source. Again, because we need our blue sources. Great card. As I said, I'm not going to run 4 because I don't want to see that many tap lands. However, 2 seems the right amount where it can come into play later in the game and potentially get a card that can help you win. So there's the main board of the deck. It's consistent enough that I've been testing this for a few months now, tweaking it over time as I come back, as I switch between Magic and other games that I'm trying. For example, I am recording a lot of Overwatch videos, which will be put on the Let's Get Gaming YouTube channel. You can check it out on the link below, posted. And yeah, so let's continue on. Now we're going to go to the sideboard. Okay, so sideboard. So you'll see in the sideboard that I have a lot of white and some black. Now, the main reason why I'm splashing white is for a little bit mainboard help and the sideboard help, because white is needed in order to help us get rid of certain combo pieces. It's to get rid of Leyline of Sanctity, which is actually one of the big banes of this deck, because there's a lot of because you're actually targeting the opponent consistently. So if you really don't have it, then you're in a lot of trouble. The only really thing that gets around Leyline of Sanctity in your deck is Mesmeric Orb and Jace's Phantasm, if you can get enough cards in the graveyard. So, let's go over it. Disenchant, of course, Leyline of Sanctity, I need to get rid of it. I don't want to see that card. If it comes into play, if they're running white, usually I usually don't bring it in on game 2 because a lot of white decks don't usually splash Leyline of Sanctity. Now, that may be me talking on my ass a little bit. I haven't really seen the latest, but Leyline of Sanctity is a situational card where people either run it a lot or people don't run it at all. And I think in the meta, it's not really run consistently because burn isn't as big as it used to be with a lot of control decks running around right now, and you know. Or a lot of combo and control decks. So I think Disenchant. It's also needed. You know, artifact creatures. I can use it against Affinity. It's a great card. I don't want to run 4 of it again because I don't really need to see it as much, but 2 of seems to be a good factor, especially paired with Visions Beyond. I can draw, I can filter it out. I like it. I like it. I need it. I recently added it to my sideboard after running into a lot of Leyline of Sanctity, and I don't want to see that I can't see that card. I need this card in order to help me win. Okay, so Rest in Peace. So Rest in Peace is for Dredge and Nahiria combo. So when Rest in Peace enters the battlefield, exile all cards from all graveyards. If a card or token would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. I can also use it against Grixis Control as well, since they use their yard a lot with Snapcaster Mages and Taskiger and the Golmar fucking big zombie swamp monster thing. So anyway. So it also reads, if a card or token we put into the graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. So it exiles everything from the yard. It completely screws over Dredge. They have to find a way to kill this card as quickly as possible. It screws over Nahiria combo because because Emrakul, when it hits the yard, nothing happens. It's just a great card in general. Rest in Peace is White's source to handle the graveyard effectively. The only bad part is, which is kind of a drawback, is that it also affects your board, which you need Jace's Phantasm and Visions Beyond and Crypt Incursion. Now, odds are if I'm playing Rest in Peace, odds are going to take out the Crypt Incursions because I don't really need them to see them as often. I'm probably going to go down a few Jaces and a few Visions Beyond. This is just a sideboard thing for me. Okay, so Stony Silence is for Affinity, and any sort of it's for Tron also, so they can't search consistently. It's 1 colorless, 1 white. It's an enchantment. Activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated. So again, it's a great sideboard card. I love this card a lot. Affinity, it stops cranial plating. It stops. It stops cut. We're back. 3, 2, 1, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it stops a lot of things. It stops cranial plating. It stops Steel Overseal. It stops Arcbound Ravager. It stops Springleaf Drum. It stops Mox Opal. Stony Silence is the bane of Affinity, and when they see it, it's very hard for them to get around it. And also it's used for Tron against Oblivion Stone. It's used against their expedition maps, their searches. So again, great card. I don't really want to see a lot of it. That's why I run the 2. I think that with Mill, you see a little bit of a draw factor. Redundancy isn't as important as it used to be. So only running 2 is consistent enough for me. Surgical Extraction is another great card. Going over it very quickly. Surgical extraction reads as follows. Where's my preview plane? Preview plane. Okay, so surgical extraction, for those who don't know, it used to be, one of the main things that used to be around in Legacy was extirpate. And extirpate was 1 black. It had split second, which means as long as extirpate is on the stack, nobody can play spells or abilities on it. There's certain abilities that get around it, but that's neither here nor there. I don't really need to explain it. And it reads: you choose a target card in a graveyard, and you search his or her graveyard, hand, library, and any number of cards with the same name. You exile them, and then that player shuffles his or her library. So that's why that card was great. Surgical extraction is a little bit better for modern because extirpate, you don't really need the split second. There isn't really a lot of counters. There isn't really a lot of plays like free counters and stuff in Modern, so they actually have to pay their mana in order to stop it. Anyway, so Surgical Extraction, it's got Phyrexian mana, which can be paid with either black or 2 life. Again, same idea, choose target card in a graveyard other than a basic land card, searches owner's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards of the same name as that card, exile them. That player shuffles his or her library. This is great for mill, because A, it is another mill. It is another mill card. And you ask, how is it another mill card? Well, if they're running 4 of combo pieces, for example, Creature Toolbox is running Kiki Jiki combo a lot of the time, and Restoration Angel. So what you can do is, or you can even run still Creature Toolbox also runs the old twin combo with Delver, Exarch, and Pestermite, etc., etc. So these are good for really exiling combo pieces. When I'm facing the Hyria combo, I actually put in Rest in Peace and Surgical Extraction just in case my enchantment does get killed and I have a way to surgical extract to get the card out. Again, great card, consistent. It helps me mill. It helps me get rid of combo pieces. It helps me get rid of enchantment kill. It helps you get rid of, let's say, Leyline of Sanctity's in the yard and they have one in their hand. You can get rid of it. You can actually search their opponents. You can actually search their library again. You can see what's in their library, you can see what's in their hand, you can get rid of cards in their graveyard, and you can get rid of cards in their hand and their library too. It's just a great card all around. Surgical is always needed. It's always needed in mill. Now, again, since I run the Rest in Peace Surgical Extraction split, you don't, and as well as Crypt Incursion, you don't really need to have 4 of it. I only want to really see 3 of it, because sometimes, because it's going to replace Crypt Incursion, in my honest opinion, against certain combo pieces, because I want to get rid of certain cards. So again, great card, love it, always support it. I actually have a nice fancy art. Ooh, the promo art. Anyway, let's continue on. So these are 2 of the newer additions that I have. One of the big banes of mill is Infect, because you don't really affect their board as often, unless you have Path to Exile. And Infect is a very, very hard deck to fight with mill. That's why I brought in Spellskite in the sideboard. So Spellskite, for those who don't know, and if you don't know Spellskite, you don't really know Modern, just kidding. So it's 2 colorless, it's an artifact creature, it's a horror, it's a 0/4. And you can pay Phyrexian mana, which it's the blue ones, you can play blue or 2 life, and you change target spell or ability to Spellskite. So here's where Spellskite is awesome. Okay. Infect targets creatures consistently. So what you can do is you can actually pay the blue mana or the 2 life, which you don't really need against Infect, because Infect is trying to give you Infect counters and not actually trying to take your life away. But you can start changing those spells towards your Spellskite and pumping your Spellskite instead of the Infect creature. And then not only that, not only do you have the Infect creature now not gaining any of the pump spells, but you actually now have Spellskite gaining all the pump spells, potentially being able to block everything that Infect throws at you. And that's why Spellskite is a bane of Infect. It's needed in mill. You need Spellskite in Modern mill. I can't say that enough. I'm going to say it one more time. You need Spellskite in Modern mill if you want to win, because Infect is very real and it's very scary to fight. And if you don't, you're not going to beat Infect unless you get superiority lucky in some way, shape, or form. Again, love Spellskite. I'm going to support it. I'm testing it out currently. I've actually beaten a couple of Infect decks now just because I'm the back of Spellskite. Again, great card. This is a card that, Profane Memento. I didn't actually really know about this card. I had no idea it existed until I actually saw that Dimir Mill deck, and how well it worked with it. So let's talk about it. So it's one colorless, it's an artifact. Whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, you gain 1 life. This card paired with Crypt Incursion and paired with Mesmeric Orb is a great combo because you're consistently gaining life every turn. There's a lot of decks that pump their creatures. There's a lot of decks that bring up big creatures. Termagoyf is a very scary card because you're actually filling the yard with different effects. Delirium is another very real card nowadays. Delirium, the ability, is another very real ability nowadays. So you're filling the yard consistently, and Profane Memento helps you gain that much life back, especially against aggro decks that are trying to get you down quickly. Crypt Incursion works well because, again, they're trying to get you down fairly quickly, so you're gaining more life. This is actually a backup card to Crypt Incursion. I would never replace Crypt Incursion with Profane Memento. I actually would back it up with it. I usually replace Mesmeric Orb just in case I don't really need it. Again, great card. I run 3 of it because, again, I don't really want to see 4 of it. I want to see it maybe in my opening hand, but consistently enough on turns 2 and 3, especially when you go turn 1 Profane Memento, turn 2 Glimpse the Unthinkable, or turn 1, you go turn 1 Hedron Crab, turn 2 Profane Memento, put down a land, crack a fetch, 6 cards, you could potentially gain 6 life. Profane Memento is great. It's amazing against aggro. It's 100% needed. I love it. So, anyway. This is my Esper Mill deck. As I said, we're going to be going on to Modern Constructed League, and we're going to be testing this baby out. I'm a little nervous, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm a little sidetracked. I'm a little scared, just because of the fact that, you know, I've never actually done a Modern Constructed League. I'm going to admit it to you. I've never done it. So we're going to find out how well I do. We're going to find out some of the top MGD top 8 decks inside the Constructed League, and we're going to see how well we can do. So guys, thanks for watching the introduction video to Esper Mill, and we're going to be coming back to you very shortly.